Hey everyone, thanks so much for listening to Musicast. This is a reminder that if you know someone who would be a great guest on the show, you should go to the Flat Books website, click on any of our blog posts, and click on the nomination form. You can also send us information directly by emailing musicast@fflatbooks.com.
All right, thank you for joining us again for another episode, this time today or this evening, this morning, whenever you're listening to this. We are with Wanda Vásquez Garcia. Wanda, thank you very much for joining us and being here to chat. And you are the expert on you, so if you could just briefly give our listeners a little background of who you are and why you're here.
Thank you for saying my name so nicely.
Anytime.
So, yes, my name is Wanda, and I am originally from the Dominican Republic. I was born and raised there, and 25, my family and I, my husband and my kid, I was pregnant at the time, we decided, okay, we're going to go for higher education, and they didn't have master's or doctoral degrees in the DR. They still don't have. So we moved to the States. We came to Iowa. I knew nothing of English. And thank God I landed in Iowa. So my accent is, imagine me landing in any other place where the English dialect has a more interesting accent, to say it that way. And then from there, we have lived in Iowa, Tennessee, and now I live in Colorado. Then when we moved to Colorado, I was at a point that I could say, okay, my kids are old enough, they can go to school now. It's my turn to also go back to grad school. So I did, and did my master's in music education, emphasis in choral conducting, and I started teaching 8 years ago. So this is my 8th year teaching here in the States, and I taught in the DR before I moved here. Yeah, it's been an interesting journey.
So Wanda, I'm glad that the Dominican came up. Obviously, it came up quickly because that's where you grew up and that's where you were raised. But now that you've come here and you're a mother raising children here and your children are in an American school, what differences do you see in terms of the role music plays from a child perspective for when you grew up and then when your children are growing up?
I find that my kids are so blessed, lucky to be here, because the structures in my country are still not even close what the kids have access to in the United States. Even with all the limitations that I know that exist, for me to be able to access music education, I have to go to private school, So I said at 8 years old, I want to learn how to play the piano. So my family had to make it a point to take me after schools to get piano lessons, because rarely, and now they're making good efforts to add music education in the school settings, but it's not standardized and it's not at every school. Some do, others don't. So, and for me, when I was growing up, it was even more deficient. So I find that my kids are miles ahead of what I was at their age when it comes to music education and music in general. So in that sense, I said, good job. We picked the right place to be to raise them.
Do you think that advance in music education also extends to culturally, the role that music plays?
I think absolutely. I mean, music is part of culture, and vice versa. I find that kids are more curious now they have more access to information, so that I feel that they are more curious to learn more. And I think my role as a teacher and as a mom of these two is to guide that curiosity. You have all this information. What are you going to do with it? What do you want to find out? So I love questions. So I put lots of questions into my students. Okay, so we're talking about this, but what do you want to find out? So this is the general idea. What do you want to know? And so that guidance into, where they can go is just exponentially more productive than what I could give them, because they know what they need to know, and they know where to find it if you guide them properly.
So do you have any particular interest, or do you feel a need as you watch the Dominican Republic add music into their school system. Do you have a hand at all in making that happen, or are you just kind of watching from afar?
Lately, I've been more involved. Like right now, they have a master's program running. It's like the first one in music ed. So I'll be teaching a class to their cohorts. They have 44 teachers into these cohorts in the spring. It's going to be method class and like multi-different ensembles, like non-unusual examples. That's what they asked me to teach, like no choir. What can you do with limited resources, I guess.
Sure.
So I'll be teaching that. My sister is also a music educator back home, so I collaborate with her a lot. I've done some master classes for them, for her instructors and all of that. So I'm very excited to do that. And hopefully I can get back into the island at some point. I was supposed to teach this summer, but Corona stopped it. So yeah, but that's I'm excited to see what will come up. Mm-hmm.
So with all of this going on, your public school teaching and the collaboration, and you have this wonderful blog, what does your daily routine look like as a teacher, as a higher education educator, a blogger? Mm-hmm. What does your daily routine look like?
It's been interesting and hard at the same time, because I feel very productive these days, and I feel very inspired. That's not the right word, but it's just, I feel that I have all these ideas that I need to put out. I have all this creativity, but at the same time, it's hard to manage your time because you have all these devices in front of you that if you don't watch it, you can stay there for all the time that you don't have. So like yesterday, I decided that I wasn't going to touch my devices, and I cooked. I picked up the last of my tomatoes and we made spaghetti sauce. But at the end of the day, I was feeling guilty that I didn't even check my email. So that balance is important to find. So I'm very organized. That helps me in my process. Like I have a schedule that I follow. These days for working on the blog, I do reading, I research, I do this, I do that. And I have a schedule for what I do for my classroom. And since I've been doing this for a while, I have like pretty good idea what I want to do and where to find my resources. Yeah, but it's honestly, it's being hard to manage it all. Yes, it's possible.
I do. It's that recurring quote that we talk. I feel like there's like 3 or 4 things that always come up back and forth between multiple podcast episodes. But the one that I always think of is that we were talking about a TED Talk the other week with Joseph Gordon-Levitt, and he made a point of saying it's really hard to be creative when you spend so much time thinking about how to be creative. And I agree that one of the positive, it's weird to say positive, but one of the positive swings that's come out of the situation we're in is we were forced to say, like, what are these different ways we can do it? But then we found so many great ways to do things that now it's hard to say, okay, stop looking and like, let's measure ourselves so we can actually do things.
You bring an interesting point, because I'm finding that because we have all these amazing new resources and tools that we can use, we have to manage what we offer to our students, because we can easily overwhelm them, Easily you can have all these amazing websites that they can go visit and explore, but then they get lost in that, and what are they actually learning? So I think we need to become that manager of our students and guiding the learning, and make sure that the tools that we put in front of them are actually useful and reaching a goal, not just killing time,
And I think that it's almost, and to add to that almost gets more complicated, is we're being forced to look at different materials in different ways and different websites at a much faster clip. So you might find an idea in a normal year and say, I'm going to take a look at this for 6 months before I decide to put it in to context. But now where we're at, it might be you have it, and then 2-3 weeks you're trying to turn it around. And it's hard to see if they're engaged because it's not, or they're not engaged because it's not a good idea, or they're not engaged because it's just different and they need time to adjust.
Yes, agree. And at the same time, their attention span is pretty short too. It's like that balance. Where is the balance? Mm-hmm.
So I want to kind of change paths a little bit. The majority of your work, and please correct me if I'm labeling this incorrectly, but the majority of your work is in diversifying music education.
Mm-hmm.
So did that start as an interest of yours, or did you see it as a necessity, or was it some kind of combination of both?
Neither. It's just my experience, my personal experience, being an immigrant, growing up in a different country, and having to come here and kind of merge those two cultures, but not losing myself within that path. And seeing that happening in my students is what propelled me to do this. My first job, I've been really lucky also to be in the right environment. So I've been teaching the majority of my time in the United States in dual-lingual schools. So I have a super high population of Latinos that I work with. And then my first school, my first song that I want to do, because I knew that my kids were 95% Mexican or Central American, and I knew the song that they were going to connect. So I picked this song, Cielito Lindo, a beautiful arrangement by Tony Guzman, which is my compadre. And I said, Tony, can I use this song? He said, yes, of course, use it. And I presented to the students, and they said they kind of vaguely remember the song from listening to their grandparents, but they didn't even know it. Like, they didn't recognize it as part of their own culture. So as we study the piece and we go into the background, the history and all of that, they start having conversations with their moms and dads and uncles. They all live in the same house, start talking about that. So all of that, I was just the candle, and they took it and exploded, and they started bringing information to me. Oh yes, because when my grandma was living in this place and they had this kind of celebration, this kind of ceremony, they sing this song. So it was like a discovery process for all of us. For me, as an outsider of their Mexican culture, I can relate somewhat as a Latinx because of the language, but I don't know their culture. And they rediscovering their own background and learning about their ancestors. So all of that is like, if we don't do this work, all of that knowledge, all of that culture can easily be lost. And we just have no control of that. So that's my machine. That's like we cannot let any of this just disappear. Yeah.
I think you kind of answered my follow-up question, but what is your main goal as a music educator? Is it just to keep these traditions alive, or do you have a larger goal just as an educator if you were to take the music piece out of it? And is there a human aspect to all of this as well?
Yeah. That's one. I want them to know themselves. I want them to know where they come from. And if they choose not to acknowledge that part, they have the choice. But as a major goal for me is like, we need to create representation for our communities, and we need to offer possibilities. Because what we have seen so far until now is like many of our communities feel invisible within the whole large picture of our country. You know, we can easily be just what the term that we are asking not to use anymore. We don't want to be minorities. Yes, our communities are underprivileged, but we're not minorities. We're part of the fabric of the whole country. So that idea that because we are less in numbers, we might not have a bigger impact is inaccurate. And when you see it that way, that we are all capable of achieving our goal, it doesn't matter where you come from. So it's like the whole idea. We always tell our kids, you can do whatever you put your mind into, right? You can become whoever you want to. But I want that to be true for all of our students. So for that to be true, where you come from, your ethnicity, your circumstances shouldn't be an obstacle. And that's where I want to be. That's where I want to get. So representation. So my kids see themselves in all aspects, in all parts of the society, and that they belong in those places. The whole idea of being invited into a place or feeling welcome, even in my own classroom. Like, I don't want any of my students to feel like I am inviting them into my classroom or they are welcome into my classroom. I want them to feel they belong in my classroom. And the decisions that we make in my classroom are decisions that affects them. So they need to be part of that. So they need to belong in that process. So it's taking it a step farther, the equity work that we've been doing.
And I think, I don't know quite the exact way to word this question, but I think it's very common in what you describe of kind of them guiding the learning, and they guided kind of the discovery of where you took all of your work in that way. That sometimes for educators can be very scary, to kind of hand over the reins to the students in the room. Do you find that the students enjoy that aspect when you have that moment of kind of you not backing up so you're not a part of it, but backing away, letting them take the stage a little more?
Absolutely. They enjoy it. The learning happens when that process is put in place like that. And don't get me wrong, I find that when I am just guiding their process, I need to be triple prepared that when I'm the one teaching, and this is what we're doing, and you're gonna do it my way. Because when they come up with an alternative, I need to be prepared to interact with that alternative that I probably didn't consider it. So I need to be a master on what is it that the skill, the concept, the objective that we're teaching in order to allow that process to grow organically, you know? So, but they enjoy having, the same way I'm enjoying my creativity right now, like I have all these amazing ideas that I want to do, they do the same. And then the motivation is self-motivated because they are having ownership on what they're going to produce. So I think that's the beauty of taking that approach into what you do in your classroom. Mm-hmm.
I think the comment of being triple prepared is an important one for people to realize too, because I think that a lot of people want that organic learning experience, and it's one thing to say it, and it's a completely other to have it happen. And I think sometimes if you're not prepared for that moment and you have it, it's very easy to go, ooh, I don't know where I'm going, and back away before you really have a chance to own it in the classroom. So I think that triple prepared is a massive point to make in that regard.
Yeah. You have to enjoy it, and you have to let it grow. And it's very powerful.
I also love the idea of knowing where students come from and their families and where they come from. Have you experienced any of kind of the cross, having neighbor students experience where their co-students are coming from also? What is that kind of learning from each other experience like?
It's the most beautiful thing. It's because the way that they present themselves to their friends is like they're meeting each other for the first time. Sometimes. Right now we're working on a project because it leads so well to, being online, teaching virtually. We're doing a project about their musical identity. And I just introduced it last week to my students, and I presented them my musical identity. So that's the I do, they're gonna do, hopefully, right? So I did the I do, this is me. I fill out the same form that they're going to fill out. I added all the images that I want them to add. I added all the links that I want them to add. I present them myself. And they start asking me questions. Oh, miss, I didn't know this about you, or this about, oh, my family also sing that songs, and all of that, rediscovering that they did, and that deeper level of knowing each other. They do the same with themselves. And there was something very interesting because one of my students said to me, well, I don't know much about my family, what they like. And it's just that, you see, that's why this project is so important. It will help you have a conversation with your grandma, with your aunt, with your grandpa, about all of the things that you don't know. And they did, and it's so important. And but I also, for the equity part, I said, but you know what? This information is volunteer. You don't have to tell me anything if you don't want to. And in fact, if you want to make it completely fake, do it. As long as the facts that you're sharing with me are correct. If you want to imagine you're from Jamaica, be from Jamaica. But tell me who are the important people from Jamaica. because I want to acknowledge the fact that some of my students are probably not in a family situation that allows them to have this conversation with their families, or that allows them to know that, or to access a grandparent, or to, they might be adopted and they don't know, outside from their immediate family, they don't know anything about where they come from. So I need to think about all the possibilities. So it's been very interesting in them learning what they like, opposed to what their family like, their mom or their dad. Is just amazing to see.
I love the idea of letting them explore, and not cut off that what if part of their brain, hold on to it as long as possible. And I think maybe it's the older we get, or the older the students get, I think one of the things that we're experiencing, especially kind of in current times, is when you have those moments to explore a different culture musically, or I want to invest more in this and look like this, a lot of the question that seems to keep coming up is there an appropriate or not appropriate way to do it? And I think, again, to the point of opening your room up to the kids leading the experience, that's a very nerve-wracking thing for teachers to open their door to something that maybe is not from their culture, and something they're exploring that they don't have a lot of experience with. How do you feel about just the process of allowing them to experience things beyond their own culture?
So there are two parts to this question. So to me, I've been reading a lot about the contrast between appreciation and appropriation. So I think when you explore a culture, you do it when you travel. You do it when you talk with somebody that is not an immediate from your culture. So you're exploring a culture, and you show appreciation when you acknowledge that. So that's what I want to teach my students, to show appreciation and acknowledge the differences in a way that is constructive. But at the same time, I want to make sure that when I share something, is the most authentic that I can. So I say, just talk to your friends, talk to your community leaders, use your students. I have students who got here 3 months ago from Panama. You bet that is the student that I'm going to be talking about, or I'm going to say, hey, can you be the teacher? This is what we're working on. We're working on songs that we use when we play. Teach me a song from Panama that you sang when you were playing. I give him a guideline, but at that moment, he's the expert. She's the expert. So I use my experts. Because we are in this, time, and everybody's reachable through Zoom, I've been exploring that a lot. So I call my professor from the DR, who is a folklorist. Hey, can you send my students 5 minutes? Short, sweet, 5 minutes. You talking about the folklore of the DR. Absolutely. Kids loved it. Well, I have a parent who is from Argentina who happens to be a pianist. I email him too. Hey, tell me about the music from Argentina. So I think going into your community, finding those community leaders, talking to your friends is important. And most importantly, giving the opportunity for your students to be the experts at something that they know is more powerful than me trying to pretend that I know everything when I don't, So and this is super hard for me. This is because I'm a control freak. Like I'm planning ahead. I'm early. I know 3 months in advance what I'm going to be doing, which is very unusual for a Latinx. But it has taken me a lot of giving my control away to the process for a better learning experience for my students. So I think those are the tools that I will use. You reach for your community leaders and don't think that you know everything. And you don't need to know everything either.
One of the things I'm loving about just how you describe this, because I think there is a fear among educators that we would like to give this to our students, but we want to make sure we're doing it properly. Mm-hmm. So there are resources out there beyond, the community leaders and your students that you just mentioned. Do you have any other go-to blogs that, similar to yours, or books or resources that you would recommend that educators can reach for?
I love Facebook. And
Okay.
all of these groups, people share. You just post a question and they are sharing things that I didn't even know that existed. So I am very good about save. The Colonize Your Music Room is an amazing group, an amazing website that we all should be reading. You guys are doing work for, diversifying what we read and what we present into our students. From the Decolonize Your Music Room, I found this book that I'm loving this day. Is the Tic Marín Mi Cantos Mis Raíces. I didn't know it existed. It's from songs only from Mexico. Look how big this is. And like, these are the things that, 1, 2, 3 songs from Mexico. This person, Beatriz Aguilar, put this amazing book, and she even cataloged it by, if you want to teach these 2 sounds, this is the song you need to be using. If you want to teach this rhythm. So I love those resources. And honestly, research, ask. Google is an amazing tool. There is no excuse right now. Honestly, there is no excuse. The only thing you need is time and to look for what you want to look. Time I find that is the biggest obstacle right now, is time. But there is not a lack of resources anymore. I don't think.
And the outreach and the ability to get a hold of people. I mean, immersion or like first party sources and things like that, it looks totally different, but all the classrooms do at this point too. So to be able to reach out to people is just never easier.
Also, one place that I go to very often is the Carnegie Hall Explorers, the Musical Explorers. I love their program. They have few features, but the ones that they do are very thorough of research, and they have people that are from those cultures teaching us teachers and teaching our students. So those are also a good resource.
So my next question, just to play a little bit of devil's advocate here, is, there are some people who are very set on, we need to teach Bach and we need to teach Beethoven. What does a balanced classroom look like? Is there a balanced classroom, or do we need to open up, completely and just restructure the way we look at music education? I just think about like my K-5 room, and the composer of the month was, Bach, Handel, Haydn, Beethoven, so I would have loved to have an opportunity in your classroom.
Absolutely. No, I think we are at a point that we need to think outside the norm, not the box, the norm. We've been teaching these norms. We need, like you just said, those composers, and they have a place in my classroom, but they don't own the whole space in my classroom. They represent a culture. They represent a time period that we cannot forget. And they represent an influence into the music that me as a Dominican have. They have an influence into the music that is traditional to me too. So we cannot ignore them for the sake of diversity. We need to incorporate them and find those connections. Now, what I've seen right now is that, until I guess this movement is not new, I feel like people are paying attention more now because of the situation that we are right now. But until, 10 years ago, just to say a time period, they control everything, Bach, Beethoven, Rachmaninoff, and, Cascanueces, Nutcracker in December. So they control our curriculum. So we need to diversify our curriculum, create representation, and do it in a way that also reflects our students. Okay, so they are the ones that I want to show them the possibilities that they have in music, but not in music, in life. So if you can be this amazing musician, you can be whatever you want to be in life. So this is just one more way, one more thing to aspire to. So I do not ignore them. They are part of my wall of composers among 100 others because there are not 10. Yes.
I love the statement of they're a part of the classroom, but they don't own the classroom, because the idea I find myself coming back to a lot right now is I don't think and I could be wrong. There are more than I know of, but I don't feel like most people go into teaching music because they studied Bach and it was the most fascinating thing they've ever heard, and they went, I want to teach someone about Bach. And we get stuck on this process of how we teach and what we teach, but not why we chose what we did. And I know it's weird and it's super reflective in terms of the time we're at and things like that, but I mean, I got all the way to college before I really started asking like why I was going for music ed. And I took, it was the summer before my senior year, I took a mission trip through my college to the Dominican, to a Puerto Barrio, and it was so monumentally different because the competition aspect of music school, I was never a fan of. I never liked that idea of I'm going to lock myself in a practice room and play for 15 hours just to hope I get one better chair. And then I found myself in this community and this culture where objectively from a materialistic possession or a material perspective, these families and these children had so much less than me, but they seemed so much more appreciative of life. And it
Happy.
Was, yeah.
There's a lot of joy in my island.
And I went, and it was great because to a point where I thought, I was a semester away from teaching, and I thought I can go down and I can do this and I can do this, I can do this, and I can do this. And the most fun I think we all had is when I got 2 days in and I went, and I had a teenager with me from the church group in the Dominican. And he started to lead songs, and then just to watch them and to be a part of it. And I had a hard time coming back because I went back to this, learn your scales, learn these notes. And I thought, why? Like, this isn't why we're doing it.
Yes.
And it just like not being beholden to this old way or these old composers and things is such a refreshing way to remind ourselves why we chose what we did.
I love elementary school for that reason. It allows me to bring more joy and to my students, because I am not tied to this performance of we're going to this festival, we're doing this competition, we're doing that, and you're going to audition for all state and you're going to do this. And I often people ask me, I also teach at a church. I teach 2 choirs. I have a youth high schoolers and I have a children's elementary and middle school, and I love them, and that is like my performance group, and this is where we're going to do the repertoire that I want to do because I love choirs and I am a choir director. And we have a lot of joy in that, and we teach skills and all that. But the kids that are in my youth choir and my children's choir, they're there because they want to be. In our schools, they're there because they want to be, but they also want to pass a class. They need to take this class, or they want to take this class. And that is why I have not wanting to move up to high school. And I also don't like your guys' schedules. It's like, when you are in performance mode, you spend like 12 hours in the building. It's like, no, I want to go home at 5. So that's another thing. But you're right. I think I enjoy my interactions with my students when our musical experience is all about enjoyment. And yes, you are learning through that. It's not just playing games. It's not just singing games, because you have to tie your concepts in there. But when you do it through that lens of how we're going to have fun today and learn at the same time, it just makes it even more, I don't know. I enjoy that more. I'm glad you had a good time on my island.
I loved it. It was awesome. It was so much fun. And I do agree with you that I love where I'm at, and I love my students and the experiences and the relationships I have with all of them. But there is part of me that I miss the elementary school level of it. And I have a lot of colleagues that are at high school level, and I say I could never do beginning band and listen to those same songs over and over again. But when you have that kid that gets it for the first time, like the look on their face is worth it. You get it more sincerely than you get at the higher
It's more
level.
satisfying. Absolutely. Absolutely.
So taking kind of everything we've talked about into account, what do you think the future of music education should look like or could look like? And do you think we're going in the right direction, or do you think there's still a lot of work to be done? What are your thoughts?
I'm hopeful that we're going into the right direction, even though it's through very challenging times. But I'm grateful for the conversations. I'm grateful for the listening that the lots of teachers are doing. And that is what I started my blog in June. It's just, yeah.
Wow, I didn't realize that.
Yeah, I just started it in June, and it was like, I think this is the time people are willing to listen. And I did it not because I thought I had the right words to say. I just wanted to contribute to the visibility. And the more voices, the different point of view that you are willing to offer, I think it just allows for more voices to be heard. And I'm hopeful that during this time, we can get past this whole mentality of being exceptional. I really don't enjoy when people think, oh, isn't that amazing? This Latino is an astronaut, or this Black became this first CEO, or this Native American is this amazing science. When we are all equal and we are giving equitable opportunities where I get what I need, you get what you need to be able to achieve and have access, equal access, and then that will not be an exception. It will be an expectation. We are all expected, regardless of our, situation, our ethnicity, color, whatever. We are all expected to perform to the best of our ability, and it will not be an exception that we had a first Black president, or we have first Latinx woman in the Supreme Court, things like that. I think that's what I would like to be able to live in, a world where that is not an exception. It's just an expectation. We are all capable of doing what we need to do, and that shouldn't be an obstacle to achieve that. Yeah. Hopefully we'll get there.
I think that's just wonderful. And I'm so enjoying this conversation because, there's a lot of conversation with Kevin and I this week just about, how do we approach this conversation? And, we have to make sure we're asking questions that we're curious about, but are also going to be helpful to our listeners and interesting to our listeners. And I think you've made this just so informative and enjoyable. So if people want more of you, where can they find you?
Email is the best way, honestly. And Facebook is also a good way. I'm new to Instagram too, so it's just lots of ways to find me. But yeah, Facebook and my email, so it's a good way to find me. I'm always willing to answer questions. I often get stuff in my Facebook inbox, and I've been into, like, some of my best friends right now I never met in person. And we are constantly, what is it called? DMing each other.
Yeah.
Because, did you read this article? Did you see this? Like Kelsey, she's in your area. She's in Virginia. She's the one that started the whole list of songs that we should take out of repertoire and out of publisher. She and I, we said, girl, you're speaking my language. Let's do this. And let's do it. And we text each other every day now. And we're working on these projects, and we're going to do a presentation in my state, the CMEA, Colorado Music Educator Association, in January. We haven't met each other. We're working in this. So I love those kind of interactions, and it's everything because of these conversations. So you can send me a private message on Facebook if you want more of me, and you can read the blog and all that. So yeah.
Awesome.
I'm really not good about self-promoting myself, but I do want to be a source. I want to be a resource if I can help anybody in any way.
You're in good company. We're not great at self-promoting ourselves, but we can take care of promoting you as well. And if anyone and everyone that's listening at this point, we'll have all of the links to your blog and to your Facebook and things like that in the description of that, so we can help them find their way to you.
Thank you. It's been fun to talk to you guys.
Thank you so much for coming on and having this conversation with us. I'm sure people are going to want to find more information as soon as they hear this. So thank you so much.
Thank you. And good luck with all of your conversations. I can't wait to see how this grows.